Hey folks, listen, in this video I'm going to talk about one of my favorite shots that gets me so close to the basket most of the time that I have a stress-free drop-in or easy putt when I'm approaching the basket. It'll shave strokes off your game and it'll eliminate some of the stress that you feel out on the course. So you want to know more? Well, you're going to have to join me right after the intro. All right, guys, thank you so much for sticking around. Now, today we're going to be talking about forehand approaches, and it's going to be a lot of the same things tying in with my forehand putting video that I got a lot of good response from. If you haven't seen it, I think I'll probably put something up here. Go check it out because there's going to be a lot of the same stuff. And I'm a big believer in reinforcing things and repeating things so that it helps people to learn it. I am also going to talk to you about how to practice and work on those shots so that you can hone them in so that you can shave strokes from your game. Okay, enough preamble. Let's get talking about it. All right, as I talked about in the forehand putting thing, one of the reasons why I think the forehand approach and scramble shot is so important is because of the same two factors. You can eliminate a lot of the stress of obstacles and elevation when you're trying to make the shot. As I've said in my other videos, when you do a backhand shot, most of the time you're going to need to have good footing and good weight transfer to get that nice power pocket to get the shot. The difference in the forehand is that you don't need as steady a base or even as much movement to be able to carry the shot off. Like I said, if you've got elevation changes, let's say I have to stand, there's a slope or a hill, I can still really comfortably throw the same shot because most of the action is happening up here in my shoulders and upper torso. So elevation is not as big of a factor when I've got to make that shot. So I feel more comfortable, and comfort and relaxation when you're throwing is going to give you better, cleaner shots. The other thing is obstacles. Now I got to bring in a friend to help with this one. All right, my good old buddy Bob here. He's going to represent the tree. I'm stuck behind the tree. Hey there. I've got a couple options. I can definitely step out and do it like a patent pending and come over here. But as I've talked about before, one of the things that you have to do with that is you have to turn your head and try to target the basket. And we tend to really pull over and over exaggerate either in or we don't connect enough and we throw it out. And so, at least for me, I'm not as comfortable making that shot. Whereas if I can step up, my disc is behind the obstacle, I can step out and I've got all this wingspan to get out and around it. So this tree, Bob, I could have 3 more Bobs and still probably get around them. So there's something very handy about being able to have that lateral movement and still feel comfortable when you make the shot. All right, thank you, Bob. If I'm having to throw backhand, I can, my mark is here, my mark is right here. I can get out to here with the patent pending and get all the way across here. And so I've got this much lateral movement. So from the end of my disc to about here is where I can go on this side of things. Whereas if the disc is here, I can go all the way out to here. I'm getting at least another 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet of wingspan that I can throw. And the thing is, I'm so much more comfortable out here than out here. Now, granted, I want you to practice this shot too because it's very important. Let's face it, sometimes the trees are on the left, sometimes they're on the right. You're gonna need to have both of them. But if I've got my choice between the two, I'm gonna choose this every time because of comfort and control. So I tell you what, enough talking in the studio. Why don't we jump out in the field and take a look at it, and I'm gonna give you some tips on how you can practice and get used to this. Okay guys, before we get out to the field, 2 more things I've got to mention. Well, actually 1, but it's a 2-parter, and that's elevation. Elevation is key for a lot of this. The first thing is you want to use elevation to your advantage so that you can throw it higher and let it float in softer. The higher you can throw it, the more it's going to run out of steam and come in at the basket if you do it right. But that's going to require the second part, and that is getting your nose angle correct. What you want to do is you want to get your nose up instead of driving right at it, so that it's going to go up, run out of steam at that perfect point, and then fall down towards the basket. And that's going to take some precision in getting to know your disc to find that right angle to know. If I have an overstable disc and I throw it forehand on anhyzer like this, and it goes up, I've got the nose up so it's traveling up, it's going to be fighting, and at a certain point it's going to take over and dive hard to the right. That's what elevation does, is it makes the disc climb the hill. Well, it's got to go somewhere on that hill, and it's usually going to fall off hard to the right, or hyzer out whatever direction you're throwing. Backhand, it's going to do the opposite. It's going to go up the hill and then it's going to fall hard off. But if you can time it and get that nose right, it goes up the hill, it's climbing the hill, and it runs out of steam, forward momentum, but it's right on that edge of wanting to drop this way, but it can't because you still got a little bit of pull this way, and so it gets to the top of the hill and it falls right down through the hill because it's not a real hill, it's air. And that's the ideal shot. If you can get a flick, split finger, I do that, you can do however you want. I throw it on anhyzer, trying to get that nose up so it climbs the hill, it flattens out right at the top and then just hovers down to the basket. That's the ideal shot, or something similar to that, so that it's coming into the basket as it's landing. I want it to plop. You're gonna see sometimes on the video, I'm just wanting it to plop and you can almost hear it. That's the ideal goal, is learning how to get that perfect nose up angle and elevation to just drop bombs right on the basket. So anyway, I hope that helps. Let's go jump out on the field and hopefully it'll make more sense. Let's talk about practicing this shot. And I've pulled all my mid-ranges putters out of my bag, from overstable to understable to real beat birdie. It's not about the disc. As a matter of fact, I've got a whole nother stack of discs. I could use any of them. This is practicing and getting to know your disc so that you can shape the shots. I've set up my hoop as high as I could go here, and what I'm going to work on doing is throwing through the hoop and letting it drift back and throwing up on anhyzer like I'm going around a player in ultimate, throwing anhyzer, letting it go through the hoop, and then the natural stability of the disc is bringing it down to land flat. Hopefully I'm going to plop near the basket. If I'm throwing it right, I'm going through the hoop and I'm landing softly right by the bag down there. If I'm throwing it wrong, you get an immediate response. First of all, I miss the hoop, that's no good. Or if I come crashing in the ground, I haven't adjusted for the disc. I pulled that one over. That one's a pretty beat up disc, so it doesn't want to fight back as much. So I need to keep that in mind. Sometimes that's good to know. And now it flattens out, plops right by the bag. This is more overstable, so I'm going to have to give it a little more anhyzer. Right by the bag. This is pretty neutral. This is my putter. It's not as stable, and I didn't give it quite as much flick. You saw it kind of died out to the end. Same thing, this is a little more stable. See, I pushed it out a little bit more, and it still fought back. And that's when you know you missed the shot. A lot of times when you need to scramble, you need to get up and over stuff. You want to think about using elevation as your friend when you're approaching and scrambling. So sometimes I may need to go, forget that, I may need to go way up high and let it fade out and come back to the bag. And the thing is, you should be able to work on this so that no matter where you are from this distance, you should be landing within 10 feet of the basket and with almost every shot. And that's going to be a powerful tool. So let me throw some more. Oh, gave it a little twist. It actually makes it easier. To be honest, I set this up after I knocked it over. I need to push it over a little bit more because I'm actually wanting to swing this out even wider because that's more comfortable to get it up and let it float and come back, but also to get around obstacles. You want to have as much latitude to swing around stuff as possible because usually there's a tree here, so if I can get way around it and come back around, that's even better. So instead of going through the hoop, I'm gonna go over the top and to the right of it. And if I do it right, it just comes and plops. I was a little off to the right. Let's try it one more time. You see how I'm using nose up? I'm getting it up in the air and then letting it die and just plop down. You're almost throwing darts at the basket instead of running at the basket. And that can be very helpful. It takes a lot of the pressure off. If I know I can drop these discs by the basket from here or even farther, that's very handy. Okay, so this setup is so handy to help train you to throw the right line, but also get used to hitting tight windows. If you throw through this hoop and consistently throw this hoop, you're gonna be confident out on the field. When you've got a window about that size, you're like, oh, I hit that all day long. It's teaching you to aim small, miss small. See, that one's overstable and I didn't pay attention which disc I was throwing. Good old reliable. See, that one's gonna keep going. It's trying to fight out. You'll also wanna find, it doesn't matter what disc, find the disc or two that fit for you. Like most of the time when I'm approaching, it's either a Berg or I may use my Vector or my Reactor. I've got a couple that I know, depending on what kind of stability I need. But any disc, it doesn't matter. I grab just a slew of discs from Mustang to Sully's Zone to the Landmine. I'm just gonna throw a few of these and let's see how they do. Some of these I know the stability, others I don't, but I kind of have the general idea. This is just kind of working on muscle memory, okay? I knew it. Let's see if I can hit it. Ah, got it. Side note, if I wasn't on my motorcycle, I would have a little 5-pound ankle weight I'd put on that to help resist against when I hit the thing, but I was traveling light, so. All right, 3 more. Oh, Pete, I got twitchy in here. All right, besides the one that hit the basket, hit the ring, let's see how we did. So I'm about 65 feet away. Sully just hit the base of the basket from over there. Nice shot, Sully. All right, let's look at this. I'm gonna zoom out. So here's where they all landed. So my worst shot, this is my worst shot. Put it back to 1x zoom. I am 12 feet away, maybe. Boom. That's comfortable. All these, this one's about the same distance, but look, they're all right in here. And that's what you're going for, is that comfort of knowing that you can run at the basket and have them all nearby with makeable putts so that you take out some of that stress. Okay, I'm about 25 feet away from the hoop. The farther away you get, the harder it is to hit. But this is more about setting that line how I want to do it here and having it land. So now I'm just going to use all the various discs I have, and it doesn't really matter what disc you use. Use the disc you know and know how they're going to fly. I have some understable, have some overstable. Don't make the disc be the excuse. Whatever disc you have, learn it so that you know exactly what it's going to do. I'd rather you have 3 discs that you know exactly what they're going to do than 30 discs that you're kind of knowing what they do. So anyway, some of these I know a lot better than others, but I understand their basic flights and we're just going to see what we can do. So out of the corner of my eye, I'm looking at every disc as I'm grabbing it, and some of them I make quick decisions about overstable, understable. But let's go see how they are. It's pretty telling. This guy over here is more overstable than I thought. So that was my brain fart, and then I hit the top of the thing. Those aren't great. But even my worst throw is, here, I'm gonna zoom out. Yeah, my worst throw is, I think that's 12 to 15 feet away, maybe 16-ish feet, but these are all very makeable putts that I've just, let's say I had to run through a window of trees that I had to get through and throw over to here. I would be happy with all these. This would be my least favorite. Nailed it. This is my other one. What? That's about 12 feet. But everything else is right here, tap in range. And that's, you should be confident to be able to drop these shots in here this close all the time, or most of the time. Let's face it, we're gonna screw up. But having that confidence when you step up to know that you can repeatedly just drop your disc in by the basket, even having to run up and around stuff, can be very handy. Okay, Pete, I don't have a hoop. I don't have any way to practice that way. Well, just use what you have. For instance, now I'm gonna practice getting up over this bush and landing near the basket. It's gonna force me to go high and plop the disc. I can't run it way past it. There is a little bit of a wind coming this way, but granted, yes, I could throw a little forehand this way, but we're gonna pretend it's blocked off and I've gotta go up and over. This is great practice. Give yourself challenges that are gonna make you work on things that you're uncomfortable with. Okay. I might need to go up over the bush. A little bit left. There you go. Now the thing is, you're gonna have to put good pop on it so that it's gonna hold that stability and ride how you think it should. I cranked that over a little bit, but there it goes. Yep. Extra stable. I should have given it a little more juice. I should land right by it. So you can practice wherever you go. Just figure out shots and challenge yourself. Make it a game. Bring somebody else out and y'all start doing some horse. See who can get closest. Give yourself points. I know I'm talking fast and I'm sweaty and it's summer. I'm gonna have to go in shorts next time. Yeah, make it a game, but make it a game that leads to results. Invest in your game and have fun while you're doing it. Okay, one final shot before I melt and before I pick up all my discs and head back to work. Even when it's wide open, this is such a comfortable thing to do, is to stand here. There's the basket right there. I've just got my birdie right here. I get comfortable. I could be out here, I could do whatever, but I'm comfortable. And then I'm just gonna send it up and let it float right into the basket. I'm comfortable throwing at that basket from anywhere around here because I know I can just bend it around trees, float it in there, and get close to the basket. I'm probably way too close to the camera, but anyway, hope that helps. Okay, now it's time to be a little real. This is not the be-all, end-all throw all the time. There are times when you need to be smart. I'm more comfortable throwing that, but here we've got a shot right here. Yes, I could try to slice it right through those trees, but that's a low-risk shot. I should just rather just get up here, take a nice forehand, throw it on Anheuser, or switch around. You don't need to force the issue. I'm not saying always do this, but think about those times that you can use that to get you out of trouble or be more comfortable. Let's say this was all blocked off and all I had was that gap between the pine tree and the other tree. Well, then this would be a natural shot. But don't force it just to make the shot. You know, I lost a dang one of these discs out here doing this stuff. I mean, it's got to be right here. I hate when that happens. All right, let's talk about body mechanics. Now, I'm not an expert, not a scientist, but here's the deal. I can, and I'll demonstrate this in a minute, I can freeze almost my entire body and still generate a decent amount of power from here. I can do the same thing here. You see, as long as I'm using that long fulcrum and just my shoulder, I can generate decent power. The thing I've stated before is I'm having to look away from the basket. I've got my back to the basket, whereas this way I'm able to look right at it and lock in on the basket. This is definitely a great scramble shot too you need to work on. But if I have my choice and I've got to lock my body and just use my arm, I want to go forehand as much as possible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lean against the tree so all I can move is my arm. Okay, it's a little weird looking around the tree. Let's try that again. I'm just going to lock in my body so that all I can throw is my arm. Burn that one a little. This is an extreme example, but you see what I'm saying is you don't need a lot. Someone's talking about, a lot of times when I'm free, I tend to, give a little bit of this, give a little bit of that, bounce or push or spin. But to be honest, you can still generate a lot without anything else but the arm. I'm gonna make one of these. I cheated a little, I started backing up. I need to lean against the tree. All right, that was uncomfortable. So here's the collection. That was my first time trying that. So you see, pretty effective. Okay, here's another great setup that you can find a place where you're going to work on your approaches. You see, I've got this gap, the ceiling, the basket's over there. It's on kind of a raised platform, and so I've got to make sure I get it up over the platform and land softly up there so it doesn't go rolling away. But I've got elevation over here to work curling it around and landing it near the basket. So let's see what we can do. By the way, I pulled out, I've got just a whole batch of brand new Envies that hopefully they will fly the same. I think when you're working and starting out with this, you want to get a batch of the same types of discs so you can work on the form. Then once you get it down, you can start adding different stability discs, etc. But when you're practicing, you want to go with a standard set of discs that you can work on getting the form without having to adjust after every throw. So hopefully these will all fly the same, so I'll get that feedback of how I'm doing. Hope that makes sense. Okay folks, anyone who stayed throughout this whole video, I'd like to share something with you that's kind of personal, but I think, this is part of what we're doing here. This past weekend, my son was, the only way I can say it is falsely arrested for a DUI, and he carries a permit and he carries a gun, but they charged him with a DUI and a weapons add-on to that. And he's never taken drugs in his life. It was part of a drug sting checkpoint, and I think the cops just got overzealous. And we didn't know where he was for hours. As a matter of fact, I had started putting out missing persons report on Alabama and Tennessee. We spent hours not knowing where my son was. His twin brother was with me trying to find him, and he was supposed to meet his sister. And for hours, it was miserable. It was one of the worst nights of our life. But anyway, I say all that. He's going to be clear. They did a blood test. I'm not worried about it. He doesn't do drugs, and I'm not foolish enough to know that drugs aren't out there, that he couldn't do drugs, but I know my son. Anyway, all that to say, he's having a hard time with this. They were pretty rough on him. He had to do a strip search and all that stuff and was in a bad situation. And for any of you that stayed this long, first of all, thank you. But also, would you please pray for him? His name is Nate. If you're into that, he could really use some prayer right now because he's just kind of struggling. And the nice thing about this is I'm not putting an end date to this, so maybe in 5 to 10 years, I still got more people praying for my son, and that's not a bad thing. So anyway, his name is Nate, and he's just such a good guy, and he's going through a hard time right now, and so I'm going to selfishly use this platform to get more people praying for him. So anyway, thank you so much, and I hope to see you out on the course.